The red notice on the wall looked louder than the storm. It was slapped crooked on the wet cedar siding, bright against a gray morning that smelled like rain and creek water. I did not need to read the whole thing to know what it meant. I build and fix houses for a living. A condemnation notice is always the same message. Time is running out. I pressed my palm against the outside wall of the A-frame and felt it lean a little under my hand. The whole place was tilted just a bit downhill. The ridge beam felt soft in the wrong spots. The ground under the posts was half mud, half water. The creek below had been eating at the bank for years. "I have 30 days, the woman said behind me. Her voice did not shake, but I could hear the strain under the words. The kind of tight control people get when they refuse to let fear show. I turned around. Matilda Blackwood stood on the porch in thick socks and boots, arms folded over a heavy gray cardigan. She was not looking at the red paper. She was staring out toward the tree line like she expected a truck to come rolling through the woods and take the place right off the hill. 30 days to keep this from sliding into the creek, I said. 30 days before they say it is unsafe and push me out, she answered. I looked back at the house. It was a beautiful mess. An old A-frame, big glass windows, long roof, ivy crawling up the sides. She called it the kiln later because of the shape, but right then it just looked like a home that did not want to give up. If the rain eases up, I can brace it in 20, I said. I can jack the posts and tie in new support, but the council is not going to like it. They want this land for that new road. Councilman Bain wants this land, she said, sharp now. Her eyes finally met mine. They were the color of river stones after rain. He called the inspector himself. That sticker was on my door before sunrise. He keeps saying my divorce settlement makes me temporary. That told me a lot in one short line. She had the house, but no power. He had the title and friends at City Hall. I charge for materials up front, I said, keeping my voice even, and I work alone. I sold half my pottery to cover the first payment, she said. No drama. Just fact. She pulled a folded bank slip from her pocket and held it out. Cashier's check. Fresh ink. So you had better be as good as they say you are, Tobias, she said. Then she turned and went inside. The screen door squealed on its rusty hinges and banged shut. I stood there in the rain a few seconds longer, listening to the creek and the wind in the trees, and I knew I had just signed up for more than a simple repair. I was not just lifting a house, I was stepping into a fight. Town Hall smelled like wet coats and old coffee. I stood in the back with my shoulders against a wall that had heard too many bad speeches. At 6'4", with sawdust still in my beard, I am not the kind of guy who blends in, even when I try. Matilda sat near the front, back straight, hands folded in her lap. The red notice on her house had brought us here. The whole town seemed to know it. The safety of the Blackwood Slope is our highest concern, Councilman Bain said from the stage. He wore a dark suit and a fake smile. Homes that are neglected, homes that risk a landslide, must be handled with strong action. His eyes found Matilda. The room turned with him. It felt less like a meeting and more like a spotlight. Sheriff Caldwell sat in the front row with his arms crossed, badge bright on his chest, face blank. Everyone knew he hunted with Bain in the fall. That was reason one, you did not run to the law about this. Reason two was simple. If Matilda stepped off that land, Bain could claim emergency and have the door locked in the name of public safety. I stepped away from the wall. The slope is not the problem, I said. I did not raise my voice, but it carried. Bain narrowed his eyes. And you are? Tobias Thorne, I said. Licensed structural contractor. I walked down the aisle and stopped beside Matilda's chair. I did not touch her. I did not need to. Just standing there put me between her and the man on the stage. I checked the property this morning, I said. The house is hurt, but the hill is not the main issue. The new road work changed the way the water runs. The runoff is hitting right under her posts. I can show it on the county drainage maps. A low murmur moved through the room. Bain's smile got tighter. You have until the next inspection, Mr. Thorne, he said. The friendly tone slipped. One failed check. Then I condemned the lot with the inspector, and I have your license reviewed. There it was, the threat. Matilda stood up beside me. She barely reached my shoulder, but she held herself like someone who refused to bend for any man in that room. We walked out together. The big wooden doors closed behind us with a heavy sound. Outside, the rain had dropped to a light mist. Matilda stopped on the sidewalk and looked up at me. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Because he was lying," I said. "I fight my own battles, Tobias." "I know," I said. I checked my watch. "You hired me to fix a foundation. The mud and the politics come with it. I start tomorrow at dawn. The forecast says we get a small dry window I have to use every hour." She looked down at the wet concrete, like she was searching for another option written there. "I have not let anyone in that house for 2 years," she said. "Not since before." She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to. I heard everything in the way she said the number. "I do not need to come inside," I said. I kept my tone steady and simple. "I can start from the outside. I will jack the perimeter first." Her shoulders eased, just a little. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay." The first 3 days were a fight. I parked my old camper in her driveway so I could start at first light and work until dark. Daylight felt like money. I could not waste it. The A-frame sat on a slope of loose rock and wet clay, like a cup balanced on 2 fingers. I dug, hauled, set up heavy jacks and checked each post twice. I went to sleep with mud in my hair and woke up with my muscles already sore. On day 4, I was under the north deck, ankle-deep in cold muck, pushing a 20-ton jack into place, when I heard her voice. "Tobias!" I jerked my head up. A beam met my shoulder. Pain flashed down my arm. I grunted and bit it back. Matilda leaned over the rail above me. Her face was tense. "The kitchen floor," she called. "It is buckling." I crawled out from under the deck, wiped mud from my mouth, and took the stairs 2 at a time. The back door stood open. For the first time, I stepped all the way into her house. The kitchen was warm and smelled like clay and tea. Shelves held jars and brushes. A table near the window carried half-finished mugs and bowls. But the floor in the center of the room had pushed up into a sharp ridge, like a spine under thin skin. A main joist was failing. "Do not move," I said. Matilda stood by the sink, a half-formed vase in her hands. Her eyes were wide, but they stayed fixed on me, like she was waiting for clear instructions. I dropped to my knees and pressed my ear to the floor. The wood creaked under my cheek, long and low. The house was settling faster than it should. "I have to brace this now," I said. "I need 4x4s. They're in my truck." Her fingers tightened on the clay. "Tell me where," she said. "In the bed," I answered. "Cedar posts. Can you drag one in?" She set the vase down with care and ran. I pressed my palm on the raised ridge and put my weight into it. The floor groaned, fighting me. I could feel it wanting to snap. Matilda came back, pulling a post across the threshold with both hands, breath short from effort. "Here," she said. "Good," I said. "Slide it in." Right there. We moved fast, wood in place, hammer blows. Pressure shifted. The sound under the floor changed from a long, angry creak to a softer sigh. The ridge settled. I sat back on my heels, chest heaving. My hands were covered in mud and sawdust, and now they were on her clean floor. "I tracked dirt in," I said. "You stopped it," she answered. Her eyes moved from the brace to my face like she was seeing me new. "Temporary fix," I said. "I will replace the joist and the floor later." "But I need to be inside to do that, Matilda. I cannot fix this from the outside anymore." She folded her arms over her chest. It was not teasing. It was like she was trying to hold herself together. 2 years, she whispered, staring at the marks my boots had left. "I have not let anyone in for 2 years. I did not move closer. I did not joke. I did not tell her it was nothing. It was not nothing." "Then start again with a tea," I said. She blinked. "A tea?" "You have a kettle?" I nodded toward the stove. "We drink 1 cup of tea." Then I get my saw. For the first time since I met her, the corner of her mouth lifted into something that almost looked like a smile. Earl Grey, she said after a second. Black, strong. That works, I said. The deal was simple. The feeling between us was not. I do not know if the tea was for me or for her. She moved around the small kitchen with careful steps, set a kettle on the stove, and pulled 2 chipped mugs from a shelf. The house still felt tense, like it did not trust me yet. The brace in the floor held. The ridge of linoleum had flattened. "The sugar is there," she said, nodding toward a small jar. "Black is fine," I said. Steam rose. She poured and slid 1 mug across the counter. We stood on opposite sides, both of us still in work boots, as if we were afraid to pretend this was normal. We drank in silence for the first few minutes. "You live in that camper?" she asked. "When the job needs it," I said. "Saves daylight. You are not from here." "No," I said. "Grew up 2 towns over. Left. Came back when the work dried up in the city." She stared at the steam rising from her cup. "I grew up in that loft," she said, tipping her head toward the stairs. "My parents built this A-frame by hand. Everyone said it was stupid to build so close to the creek. They built it anyway. My father died. My mother sold half the land. I got the rest in the divorce." She lifted her eyes to mine. "I am tired of men telling me I should not have what is already mine." I held her gaze. "Then let me give you time to keep it," I said. The tea cooled. She set her mug down. "Okay," she said. "You can work inside." The next days were saws and dust and small changes. I tore up the damaged floor in the kitchen while she worked in the loft studio above. I heard the soft thump of her feet, the squeak of her potter's wheel, the tap of tools. The smell of cut wood mixed with the smell of clay and sage. Rain came hard for 5 days in a row. The yard turned into a slick mess of mud and standing water. The creek rose and hissed at the edge of the property. On the 6th morning, the sky finally broke open to a pale blue. Sunlight came through the kitchen window like it was new. I stepped up onto the porch in a plain gray t-shirt, tool belt low on my hips, hands clean because I had washed them before touching her door. The screen door opened before I knocked. Matilda stood there in a soft peach lounge dress and that same heavy cardigan. Her dark hair was down around her shoulders. Her feet were bare on the old wood. "You are up early," she said. "You have 15 days left on that notice," I said. "Early is my only choice." She held up a white mug. Steam curled in the cool air. "Earl Grey?" she said. "If you want it." I stayed on the mat, "Only if you are sure," I said. Her mouth curved into a small, steady smile. She leaned her shoulder against the door frame like she had decided the house belonged to her again. "I am sure," she said. I stepped forward and took the mug with both hands. Her fingers brushed my knuckles. The touch was light, but it was not an accident. She did not pull away fast this time. Later, when I was under the house setting new joist hangers, I saw her shadow in the crawl space opening before I heard her voice. "You have been at it since dawn," she said. "Deadline is tight," I answered, rolling my shoulders. "The wood only gives you so many chances." She crouched down, held out a plate. A thick sandwich sat in the center, cut in half, heavy bread and real cheese. "Eat," she said. "My hands are filthy," I said. "I do not want to." "Eat the sandwich, Tobias," she said, firm now. I took it. Our fingers brushed again. Her hands stayed steady. Vane drove by, she added. "Let him drive," I said around the first bite. "He can watch from the road all he wants." "He sent a letter," she said. "Said the noise is disturbing the wildlife." I snorted. "The only wildlife he cares about is the kind that pays property tax," I said. She gave a short laugh. It was small, but it was real. Then her face softened. "You are good at this," she said. "You do not just patch, you rebuild." I looked up at her. There was a smudge of clay on her cheek, a pale line on soft skin. My hand wanted to reach up and wipe it away. I kept my fingers on the beam. "If you build it right the first time," I said, my voice rougher than I meant, "you do not have to fix it later." Her eyes lingered on my mouth for a heartbeat. Then she stood and went back upstairs, leaving the faint smell of vanilla and wet earth behind her. By the end of the second week, the kitchen floor was solid. The posts were holding. The jacks had taken some of the weight off the tired old frame. That was when I went after the real enemy. Water. I drove to the county building with mud still on my boots and my contractor license in my pocket. The records office was lit by old fluorescent tubes and run by a clerk who looked like she had seen every kind of lie a man could tell. "I need hydrology maps and grading plans for the Blackwood Slope," I said. "Those are for official projects," she replied, "not for personal curiosity." "This is an official project," I said. I slid my laminated license across the desk. "Public record. Print them, please." She watched my face for a long second, then turned to the printer. 40 pages came out, warm and full of lines that most people never learn to read. Culverts marked in blue. Old drainage ditches. The new road line, cutting across like a scar. Back at the A-frame, I rolled the maps out on Matilda's work table. "This is what Bain did," I said. I pointed to the thin blue line that showed where the old ditch used to run, then to the new line that sent water straight under her posts. "He moved the water," I said. "He did not move your house. He moved the creek to your house." Matilda stared down at the maps, her hands flat on either side. Anger pushed the fear out of her face. "Can you prove it?" she asked. "Yes," I said. I pulled up photos on my phone. Fresh cuts in the dirt, new channels carved by heavy flow, places that did not line up with old satellite images. "And I can prove the second part, too." I set a small trail camera on the table. "What second part?" she asked. "Men who want land cheap do not like witnesses," I said. "They like accidents. They like things that look like bad luck." That night, I worked by headlamp, digging a shallow trench and laying a temporary drain to pull the runoff away from her pilings and into the old channel line. I stacked sandbags at the low points. By morning, someone had kicked the sandbags open. Boot prints marked the mud. Not mine, not hers, fresh and clear. I did not yell at the empty yard. I just raised the camera higher, aimed it at the dark crawl space opening, and walked back to the camper. 2 nights later, at 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed twice on the small shelf beside my bed. Motion alert. I was out of the camper in seconds, boots half laced, flashlight between my teeth. The air was cold and wet. The creak sounded louder in the dark. Under the deck, a man in a county work jacket was bent over one of my support posts with a pry bar. "Step out," I said. My voice came out low and calm. It surprised even me. He froze. The pry bar stayed in his hand. I said, "Step out." I repeated. He turned slowly. The jacket had a county logo, but the truck at the end of the lane was an old, muddy pickup with no markings at all. "Drop it," I said. He let the pry bar fall. It hit a stone with a sharp sound. "Who sent you?" I asked. He swallowed. His eyes darted past me toward the house. "A guy," he said. "Paid cash. Said it was a cleanup job. House is condemned anyway. Just had to loosen a few things." "Name?" I said. He shook his head. "I do not know his real name," he said, panic rising. "I did not go inside. I did not touch the woman. I just had to loosen the post. That is all." "Good," I said, "because here is what is going to happen. You are going to walk back to your truck. You are going to leave this road, and you are going to tell the man who paid you that I was here. The next time he sends someone, I will be waiting again." His eyes flicked to the little camera light above us, then back to my face. "You film me?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "with your face in the frame. That video goes to the sheriff if you come back." He backed away, hands lifted like I was holding a gun instead of a flashlight. A minute later, his truck turned around and disappeared into the trees. At dawn, I printed still images from the footage. The man's face. The pry bar. The timestamp. I slid them into a folder with the hydrology maps and the photos of the erosion. Paper-proof. The kind even quiet towns have to listen to. When Matilda came down in the morning, hair still damp from the shower, she found the folder on the kitchen counter. She opened it and turned each page. Her hands shook. "You stayed out there all night," she said. "I stay where the threat is," I said. She looked at me then. Really looked, like the ground had shifted under her feet and she was trying to decide whether to trust the new shape. Her shoulders dropped 1 small inch. It was not surrender. It was trust starting to move. Once we had proof on paper, the work changed. The framing inside was done. The new beams held when you leaned on them. The jacks outside took some of the weight. When I walked across the kitchen, the boards stayed quiet under my boots. That night, Matilda came down from the loft with a pizza box in her hands, like she was not sure if this counted as a celebration or just survival. "It felt wrong to eat alone," she said. We sat on the new kitchen floor with the furniture pushed off to the side. The pizza box sat between us like a border we had both agreed on. "To vertical beams," she said, lifting a beer. "To staying upright," I said, and tapped my bottle against hers. She laughed. The sound was rusty, like a door that had not opened in a long time, but it came easier than before. My level lay near my knee. Out of habit, I picked it up and set it on the floor. The bubble settled, dead center. Perfect. I let out a slow breath I did not know I had been holding. "You know," she said, spinning her bottle between her fingers, "when you first pulled up, I thought you were another one of Bain's men, someone here to push me. And now," I asked, "now I think you are the only solid thing in this town," she said. The words landed heavy and stayed. Her eyes stayed on my face a second longer than felt safe. Then they dropped to my mouth and back up again. The room got very quiet. Just the small crackle from the stove and the faint drip of water outside. Matilda shifted a little closer. Not a big move, just an inch or two. An inch that said she knew what she was doing. I leaned in the same way. No rush, no grab. Her hand rested on my forearm. Light, steady pressure. A clear yes. My phone buzzed on the floor. I tried to ignore it. It buzzed again. Then, a third time. The long, insistent vibration of a call. Matilda's breath brushed my mouth. "Answer it," she said softly. My jaw tightened. I pulled back, picked up the phone and checked the screen. It was my foreman, Elias, from another job I had him watching. "Tobias, you need to get to the site," he said as soon as I answered. His voice was tight. "The inspector is here. Sheriff, too. Anonymous complaint about unpermitted electrical work. They are saying the kiln is a hazard." "The panel is safe," I said. "I just replaced a bad connector." I documented it. "You are not a licensed electrician," Elias said. "If they want to twist it, Bain will. He is talking about shutting you down and pushing to have your license pulled." I looked at Matilda. She was watching my face. Fear moved across her eyes, then hardened into something else. "I am on my way," I said, and hung up. I grabbed the manila folder with the photos and maps and slid it into my jacket. "Bain is trying to make me look like the problem," I said. "If no one will hire me, no one will touch this house." Matilda stood up. "Then we do not let him," she said. The stop work order was wrapped around the permit box like a red bandage when I pulled up. Sheriff Caldwell stood there with the inspector, talking low. Bain stood just behind them, hands in his pockets, watching like he was already telling the story his way in his head. "You are working on a condemned structure," Caldwell said as I walked up. "You need to leave the site." "It is not condemned," I said. I held up my license. "And I have permits, and receipts, and photos." "The complaint is about electrical work," the inspector said. "Someone says you modified the system without calling a licensed electrician." "I have before and after photos of the damaged connector," I said. "And proof I replaced it with a safe part at the owner's request." "That is called fixing a problem, not making one." I pulled the pictures out of the folder and laid them on the metal permit box. The inspector took them and studied them. He did not look like a man who wanted a fight. He looked like a man who did not want to be used. Bain smiled. "We all want safety first," he said, smooth. "Good," I said. I opened the rest of the folder and slapped the maps and the printed camera still down. "Here is your safety." I pointed to the grading plan. "Here is where the road work moved the water straight under her posts." I slid the photo of the man under my deck toward Caldwell. His face, clear in my flashlight, stared up at us from the paper. And here is a man at my shore posts at 2 in the morning with a pry bar, I said. He said a guy paid him cash. Told him the house was condemned anyway. Caldwell's eyes flicked to Bain. The inspector's jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" the sheriff asked. "From a camera on private land," I said, recording what looks a lot like an attempt to make a landslide happen on purpose. Matilda stepped up beside me. She did not hide behind me. She stood shoulder to shoulder. "I did not ask for special treatment," she said. "I asked for time to repair damage the town helped cause. Now I have a contractor and proof that someone is trying to undo his work at night." The inspector ran a tired hand over his face. "Temporary stop work stays in place while we review this," he said finally. "But emergency steps to protect the structure from weather are allowed. The drainage plan will be reviewed. If the roadwork caused the problem, we will correct it." Bain's jaw clenched. I leaned in close enough so only he could hear me. "You keep sending men into the dark," I said quietly. "I keep dragging proof into the light." He smiled again, but it did not reach his eyes. 2 days of waiting felt worse than 12 hours of hard labor. I could not pour final concrete. I could not lock in the last supports. The winter front that the weather reports had been talking about all week did not care about paper or town meetings. Wind was coming. On the third night, it arrived early. Wind slammed against my camper hard enough to rock it. Tree branches snapped in the dark. The rain hit sideways. My phone rang. "Tobias," Matilda said. Her voice was calm, but I knew her well enough now to hear the strain underneath. "The power is out. I am hearing cracking near the roof." "I am coming," I said. "Stay inside. Stay away from the windows and the trees." The drive up her lane was a fight. The road was slick. The trees along the ravine bent and shook. The headlights cut through sheets of rain. Matilda was on the porch when I pulled in. Blanket around her shoulders, flashlight in one hand, beam pointed up. "There," she said. A huge branch from the redwood above the house was hanging over the ridge beam, barely still attached to the trunk. Every gust made it shift. If it broke free and fell straight down, it would smash through the roof and break the house's back. "I have to cut that loose," I said. "It is too dangerous," she said. "If I do not, the roof goes," I said. "If the roof goes, Bain gets exactly what he wants." Headlights washed over the yard, a county truck, the inspector's car behind it. Caldwell's cruiser behind that. Bain in the front seat, dry and watching. They rolled to a stop. Bain lowered his window. "Mr. Thorne," he called, "you are in violation of a stop work order. Step away from the house." The branch groaned. Wood fibers cracked. "He is trying to save my home," Matilda shouted back. She stepped off the porch into the wind and rain and walked straight toward Bain's car. "He is an unlicensed risk," Bain said. "Inspector, document this. Sheriff, you are my witness." Matilda planted her palm on the hood of the car. Water streamed down her hair and her face, but her hand did not move. "He fixed the foundation," she said, her voice clear. "He fixed the floor. He stopped my house from sliding. If you stop him now and that branch falls, I will show every map and every video. I will tell every person in this county you let my house break when you could have stopped it." The inspector looked at the branch, then at the roof line, then back at Bain. "If that hits, it is a total loss," he said, mostly to himself. "And we issued the stop work. That puts this on us. Let him cut it." Bain stared at him. The inspector stepped back. "Emergency hazard removal is allowed," he said to me. "Do it fast. Do it safe." I did not waste another second. I grabbed my climbing gear and the saw, clipped into the rope, and went up the trunk. The bark was wet. My hands slipped. My arms burned. The tree swayed in the wind. The branch above me creaked like a warning. 30 feet. 40. I tied myself in, wrapped the line around the trunk, and started the saw. The sound buzzed in my bones. The branch shook with every cut. Below me, Matilda stood in the yard, flashlight pointed up, eyes locked on me. She did not go inside. She did not look away. I cut an undercut, then a back cut, careful with the angle. The limbs started to give. For one long moment, it hung there on the last strand of wood. Then it broke free. It swung away from the roof, just like I needed, and crashed into the ravine with a deep, violent thud that I felt in my stomach. The ridge beam stayed whole. I killed the saw, unhooked the rope, and came down slow, hands numb, legs shaking when my boots hit the mud. Matilda ran to me. She threw the blanket over my shoulders and grabbed the front of my shirt with both hands, pulling me in. Her forehead pressed against my chest. Her whole body shook, not from cold but from the shock leaving. "That was reckless," she breathed. Her voice cracked. Then she tightened her grip. "And thank you." Behind us, Bain's tires spun in the mud as he pulled away. The inspector gave me one quick, tired nod and followed. Matilda did not let go until her breathing slowed. "Come inside," she said. "I am covered in mud and tree sap," I said, teeth starting to chatter now that the adrenaline was fading. "I do not care," she answered. "Come inside." The house did not creak when we crossed the threshold. It held. The power came back in a slow, stuttering way. For a while, the only light in the house came from the wood stove in the living room. Flames turned the A-frame walls gold. Rain softened from a roar to a steady hush against the roof I had just protected. Matilda handed me a pile of old sweats and a worn t-shirt she had dug out of a storage bin. "They might be a little short," she said. "They are dry," I said. "That is enough." When I came back from the small bathroom, my clothes hung over a chair near the stove to dry. She had added another log to the fire and set a kettle on top of the stove instead of the electric range. We sat on the floor near the heat, both of us barefoot now, both with blankets across our legs. The house felt different, not like a thing about to break, like something that had decided to stay standing. The kettle started to hiss. She poured the hot water into 2 mugs, dropped a tea bag into each, and handed one to me. The steam warmed my face. My fingers wrapped around the ceramic. "The inspector called after he left," she said. I looked up. "He cleared emergency work on the branch," she went on. "He said the drainage plan is under review. He also said he told Bain to stop using the stop work order as a toy." "That is something," I said. "It is more than I had yesterday," she said. We sat in silence for a while. The fire popped. The storm moved slowly east. My body started to relax in a way it had not in weeks. Matilda shifted closer, then paused, like she was giving herself one last chance to step back. She did not take it. "Tobias," she said. I turned my head. Her eyes were on mine, careful and clear. "I am not asking you to save me," she said. "I am asking you to stay." I held her gaze. I did not move toward her. I did not pull her in. I let the words sit there for a moment. "That is your choice," I said quietly. "If you tell me to leave when the job is done, I will. If you tell me to stay, I'm staying." Her lips trembled once, then steadied. She reached out and cupped my jaw with her palm. Her thumb brushed the rough stubble on my cheek. "I have not felt safe in a long time," she said, "until you." That was the answer. I set my mug down. My hand moved to her waist, fingers careful, not gripping, just there. I leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She did not. She met me halfway. The kiss was not wild like some movie storm. It was warm and simple and very, very real. Her hand slid from my jaw to the back of my neck. My thumb traced small circles at her hip through the soft fabric of her dress. When we pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. Her breath came slow, matching mine. "You risked your license," she whispered. "You risked getting hurt." "Because I do not like men like Bain," I said. "And because you should not have to stand on a porch with a death notice on your door all by yourself." A tear gathered in the corner of her eye, bright in the firelight, but it did not fall. She blinked it away with a small, shaky laugh. "You sound like my father," she said. "He used to say houses tell the truth about the people who build them. Maybe that works both ways. Maybe, I said. We finished our tea, we added another log to the fire. When the power finally clicked back on with a soft hum, it almost felt like an interruption. 2 weeks later, the sun came out and stayed. The hydrology engineer from the county showed up in a hard hat with a clipboard, boots already muddy. The inspector walked the property with her, pointing at culverts and ditches and the new drain I had cut. Matilda and I stood on the deck and watched. "The runoff from the road has been diverted," the engineer said finally, tapping her map. "To this slope. It is not what was approved in the original plan. We will be issuing a corrective order." The inspector nodded. "The structure is stable," he added. "Foundation braced, floor repaired, no active slide. The condemnation notice is lifted, occupancy is cleared." He handed me a printed form. Then he handed another copy to Matilda. "Nice work on the retrofit," he said. "Clean lines, good lift. You do not see that often on rush jobs." "Thank you," I said. After the county truck left, the hill felt quiet in a new way. Not empty, calm. Matilda went inside and came back with a clipboard of her own and a streak of dried clay on her forearm. "Before you start planning 10 new projects, we need to talk," she said. She handed me a few pages. It was not a deed. It was a contract, clear language, simple terms. Matilda Blackwood and Thorne Restoration and Ceramics. Shared workshop use. Profit share on furniture built from reclaimed beams. Space for a kiln addition. Exit clause spelled out in plain, sharp words. "I cannot throw pots if the roof leaks," she said. "You cannot build custom tables without space and power. So I am not offering you a fairy tale. I am offering you something that works." Quote. I looked down at the line where she had written my name. It was neat and careful. "You are sure?" I asked. "I have not been sure of anything for 2 years." She said, "I am sure of this." She pulled a pen from her apron pocket and held it out. I signed. The ink felt heavier than any check I had ever cashed. She smiled, slow and honest, then reached into her other pocket and pulled out a small brass key. It was new, still shiny. Warm from her hand, she placed it in my palm and closed my fingers over it. "Welcome home," she said. My throat felt tight. My other hand found her waist like it belonged there. I leaned down and kissed her, soft at first. Then, with all the steady certainty the last 30 days had given us, "Put the kettle on," I said when we broke apart. "I am coming in." We stepped through the doorway together. The house did not groan. The floor did not shift. The walls did not creak. The kiln held our weight like it had been waiting for us.